Hey everyone, I'm Ben Eubanks, Chief Research Officer for Lighthouse Research and Advisory, and I'm here with Keith Hewlin from SmartRank. We've been talking about all these incredible themes and trends that every talent leader is worried about, and one of the ones today is a big one, and that's candidate experience. One of the problems that I have with this space, though, is that it's often very undefined. We have all these myths floating around, and so today we're going to bust a couple of the very common myths around candidate experience for all of you, and I'm so excited for this. So just to set this up a little bit, candidate experience, all the articles and things out there tell you, oh, fastest application, make it a one-click apply, hurry it up. Or, you know what, candidates have no patience for anything, so we've got to just let them through and hope for the best. And the truth is, those things are not the case. And the data actually back that up. The research we have, the data that we've seen, and some of the practical applications that Keith is seeing as well with some of his customers prove this out. So Keith, if you're okay with it, I'm going to dive right into it and start laying these down one at a time and let you knock them off and prove how they are a myth. Is that good?
Love it. Let's do it.
All right, awesome. So the first one that I keep hearing over and over again is speed is all that counts. We've got to hurry up, let the applicant go through this. Speed is all that matters in the hiring process, bar none. I'd love to hear from you. What are you hearing from the clients you're working with? Is speed the only thing that matters? Is that all the candidates care about? Or are there other things that also should be considered?
Yeah. Okay. So this one, let me just start off by saying any TA leaders out there that say that speed is all that matters, I would ask them on this call, have you taken your own applicant experience, number one, both on a desktop and through a mobile? That's the first thing I always ask. Go through it yourself and see how long it actually takes you. Because I think a lot of times they would be surprised when they actually see and time themselves how long that actually takes. The other thing is, and we do this all the time in our society today, we just swing this pendulum all the way over to the other side. It's not just a one-click apply, okay? Because, and I'll come back to this probably throughout this conversation, but that's not helping anybody. It's not helping the applicant. It's certainly not helping the recruiters, and it's not going to help the hiring managers. So this idea of we have to cater to this group that wants to just hit one button and apply is the wrong thinking, okay? Are you going to get more applicants if you do that? Sure, you will. You definitely will get a lot more applicants. And that's also going to put 100% of that burden onto the recruiter to have to sort through all those. And by the way, as we've talked about in other sessions, these recruiters are going to just be having more resumes to go through. They're going to have more qualifications to try and figure out. They're not equipped to be able to really suss out exactly what those qualifications are in the first place. So now you're just going to put even more on their plate. And who's going to be really upset in this is the hiring managers, because they're going to be getting people that they know are not totally qualified for this. So this is a misconception. Now, I'm not saying time doesn't matter. I want to be clear about that. Time does matter. If your applicant experience is 30 minutes, you have a problem on your hands. The data out there is very clear, and I've seen a lot of data around this, but they say 15 minutes is the magic mark. After 15 minutes, you're going to lose 50% or more of your applicants right off the bat. There's a lot of data out there. I've read that 92% of applicants will drop off after they hit apply. They won't actually hit submit. I don't know. There's a lot of data, but what's consistent is that it seems to be this 15-minute mark. So somewhere between 3 seconds, which is like this one-click apply, and then 15 minutes, there's your sweet spot, right? That's where it needs to be. And applicants are okay. They don't have to have a 1 second or a 30-second or 1 minute apply. It's pretty clear. They're telling you, I don't need to have that. But for some reason, we've come up with this idea that's what they're looking for. Now, I'll just say one last thing about this. Are those the people you want in your organization that are only willing to put 5 seconds of time into an application? And if that's too long for them, anything that's 5 minutes, oh, I would never do an application that's going to be 5 minutes. Is that honestly somebody you think is going to be a good core contributor to the organization if they're not willing to put a 5-minute investment into the applicant experience? I think it's a fallacy.
I totally agree with that, Keith. And one of the things I think the second myth here on the list I want us to get to is very closely related to that. And that's around screening, right? Same thing, like speed is all that matters is the myth we hear. The other myth we hear is that candidates have zero tolerance, zero threshold for any sort of screening. They just want to go straight through the process without being held up or limited. And I'll tell you before you answer this, that one of the things we see in our research is that candidates actually prefer an experience during the hiring process, a screening experience that allows them to put their best foot forward, to find a way to distinguish themselves from other candidates, whether that's answering specific questions about the job or doing something else that allows them to say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. Judge me on this, not just based on how well crafted my resume is, right? Or how well the person I paid to write my resume is crafted, but it's based on the actual things I can do. So I'd love to hear from you. How is this a myth, and what are you seeing around this that can help to make it more relevant to the people listening in?
Yeah, this absolutely is a myth, and it's not. This isn't what I'm getting ready to tell you. Isn't Keith's opinion? There's tremendous amounts of data out there. You just referenced some. I read an article the other day that said that 94% of respondents to this survey said that they would prefer some sort of an assessment, as long as, and this is the key, as long as it's relevant to the particular role. Yes. That is the key thing. If you're asking things like, would you rather be an apple, an orange, and or a banana, because that's some sort of a behavioral or like psychological assessment, yeah, that's going to bother them. They don't want to do that, especially when they're just applying for a job. They don't want to do big, long aptitude assessments in the beginning. And frankly, they don't want to do a full-on assessment when they're just going on the first date. That application process needs to be, that's the first date. Now, on the second date, sure, if you're invited to the second date, sure, they're willing to put more of an investment in. I fully support those 30-minute coding assessments, hour-long. I love those. I think those are great. I also support behavioral assessments, but that happens later in the process. You're not going to give somebody an hour-long assessment at the very beginning. So again, it's this balance of what they're willing to do. If you're a qualified applicant, and you just think about this from an applicant's perspective. If you're really are qualified, do you really just want to throw your resume to the ATS resume gods and hope that you're going to get a call back? Is that what you would want to do? Or would you want some way that you could prove to them that I am exactly what you're looking for this role? Like, what do you think they would do? Now, yes, the person that's completely unqualified, yeah, they're probably just like, they know they're throwing their hat in the ring and they're probably not going to get a call back. So they definitely want a 5-second applicant process. And they definitely want to just throw that resume in, because deep down, subconsciously, they probably know they're not super qualified for that. You know, the other thing that the data also shows us is non-white applicants love assessments even more. In fact, to the tune of about double what white applicants actually like. Now, why? Because obviously there's other types of bias and things that they are already trying to overcome. So the fact that they can just show you, I can do the job that you're asking me to do, and let me prove that to you, that does a lot for them. I mean, that's way, way better. And one last thing I'll just mention about what assessments also do. There's another myth, is that the job description is going to somehow get these applicants to self-select themselves out of the process. No, they won't. No, they won't. Because it's all ambiguous. All the information on that job description is vague. So they're just going to assume whatever they want and they're going to apply. Half of them don't even read the job description. But what, like, specific questions and answers that get right to the qualifications, what those types of things do, those assessments, if you want to call them that, or just some level of screening, it shows them exactly what you're looking for. Which level of proficiency do you have? And then you have beginner with a very defined what beginner means. Intermediate with a very defined what intermediate means. Expert with a very defined what expert means. And then guru, which is like they're not dumb. They know what that means. And they know if they're selecting the one that's like, yeah, I'm not these things. I guess I'm your intermediate. That is what I am. So now I'm guessing you're looking for guru. They start to understand what you're looking for. And we see that all the time with our customers and in the data that we look at, is they'll say, I know I'm not qualified for this, but I'm a really hard worker and blah, 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 blah. They know when they hit submit that they're probably not going to get that call back, which also helps set expectations for them a little bit better.
Yes, goodness. So many good things there, from knocking off the questions that are irrelevant and useless and don't actually measure anything, right? Apple, orange, banana, how many elephants can you fit in the refrigerator, like those kind of silly things, but really getting to the job related questions. Right? Hiring managers want to know the answers to those questions. They don't care how many manhole covers in Chicago or whatever the other kinds of things you've seen over the years people ask in those interviews, trying to measure creativity. It doesn't measure anything actually. And we need to be very job related, right? It's legally defensible, but also, as you were saying right there, the candidate knows what you care about and they can respond appropriately to that. If you're asking a bunch of questions and, oh, I'm a no on all these, they know they're probably not going to be even qualified for the job. They can bail out then before they get halfway through the conversation in the first interview and realize, oh, wait, not a fit for me.
That's right.
Okay. So 2 great ones. Our last one here we're going to touch on as far as a myth is, hey, our candidate experience is a great one, right? We think it's a really wonderful. We think we're top notch. We think we're really rocking it. And I think you already keyed on this a little bit earlier. We talked about, have you gone through your own candidate experience? Have you already walked through that flow yourself? Pick that thread up and take that and talk about how this myth of we've got this thing down, we're all good, is probably a challenge for a lot of those leaders out there, even if they don't realize it right now.
It's a huge myth. And all you have to do is Google, and you'll find in a simple Google search that applicants are basically screaming at companies, telling them they don't like it. I just read an article the other day. It said 75% of Americans are dissatisfied with the applicant experience in the hiring process. And that was just one. There's hundreds and hundreds of these. So I would say, very bluntly, don't kid yourself. Your applicant experience is not what you think it is. And I'll tell you now, you may have some other cool things further on down the road with your overall hiring and interviewing and how we do all those things and how we get you engaged and my onboarding. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the first impression that a person has of your company. Now, let's look at that, because the first thing right off the bat is your applicant experience is no different than anybody else's. If you go and you take Workday and you go through their applicant experience, or you go through Greenhouse or Lever or any of these, what are you going to be doing? You're going to fill out fields. You're going to attach a resume, maybe attach a cover letter, maybe attach other documents, whatever that may be. And then you're going to fill out some more fields about like your experience in your education. Sometimes it parses it, sometimes it doesn't. That's a big frustration people have. But at the end of the day, you're just putting in a bunch of information in fields, and then you're sending it off to the ATS gods, hoping that somebody's going to want to give you that interview, right? Think about that. Is that it? That's a good experience. It's the same across the board. That's how almost every company has it, number one. So there's no differentiation there at all. And by the way, real quick side note on that. When we first started our venture, we did a survey with applicants. And one of the things that I found really interesting from that survey was that applicants were saying, that's our first impression. And that tells us how innovative companies were, in particular, tech talent. So I've been hearing for the last year and a half, we can't get tech talent. We can't hire them. We can't get them to apply. One of the first things that we heard from that survey is that technology developers, like software engineers and stuff, one of the things they're looking at is the technology you use. If it looks like all the others, then they're thinking you're not a very innovative company. Even if you just have something that's different, then you're at least going to be able to have a competitive differentiation amongst all the rest of the people and all those form field, fill these out type of an applicant experience. So I think that there's a big issue with the fact that it's just not different at all. And frankly, just being different would be nice at this point. But also, it's not very effective, right? The information that you're getting is all the exact same information. You're not really getting to the heart of what it is that these people are looking for, what the recruiters are looking for.
Yes, for sure. It's not helping you make a better selection. It's not getting you to the right candidate, right? It's, as you said, it's the same across the board. So something a little different, something a little novel, something to take a different approach and actually meet the needs of the candidates as you've walked through each of these key points today. Meeting the needs of those candidates in those sorts of ways allows us to stand out as an employer in the right way, not in the way that gets you blasted on Google, the reviews on Glassdoor or everywhere else, because it's a terrible experience, but you get the credit for, at least I got considered for the things that were relevant to the job, and they picked me or didn't pick me based on those things, instead of some other random arbitrary, oh, the algorithm didn't like me or something else that's completely outside of their control. So I love that these examples here were the ones we focused on in this. For all of you out there listening in, candidate experience is a big priority. It's a big focus. It's still a key trend that you need to focus on. But I'm hoping after this conversation with Keith that you picked up some good details on the right things to focus on and to pursue this in the right way so you can create the changes that your candidates want to see. And guess what? It's going to make it better experience for you and your hiring managers as well. Keith, thank you again for sharing your insights here, for the support you're providing for the recruiting and hiring community. I know they appreciate it, and I do as well.